Alright class, I wanted to talk to you guys about some kits you could buy. There's these type of kits you can get for sketching. They're alright. They have the right type of what do you call it? Charcoal pencils in there, and then pencils, and this is a tortillon over here, the blending stump, and then there's an eraser. That's for helping sharpen your charcoal, and then has a pencil sharpener. You can buy maybe better quality ones of each of these separately. Some people like to buy woodless pencils. Those are fine too. They come in different hardnesses. You'll see on there things like B and H on your syllabus supply list. That's for hard and soft. The H's are the hardness. And then there's other brands that you could use. Artist Loft, Kimberly. But you'll see things like on there, like the number will be on the end of the pencil. This one's a 4B. You want to use the H pencils for the light sketching when you're trying to figure out like proportions later on, and then the B's for doing the shading. The softer the one for more shading. And you'll use the charcoal pencils later on in the course for actual shading as well. So that's something to be aware of. Then there's also something people sometimes have a question about, which is a kneaded eraser. This is a kneaded eraser. They're like silly putty basically, and they're that way so you can knead them and take the charcoal off of your my tripod's getting messed up here. Just fixing it. Take charcoal off your paper a lot easier because you keep kneading it and it goes back to a darker gray every time. It gets darker, I should say, every time you knead it, and the dust sort of disappears into the ether of the kneaded eraser. You can see what happens. See, it gets light again. After you use it for a long time, it gets more and more built up full of charcoal. These work for pencil too, but they're specifically designed for, in our class, the reason why I have you get them, I should say, is for the charcoal. But you can use, you could use these on pencil. The main ones that I have you use for pencil, though, in general, are those white magic erasers, or there's pink pearl. They're the same type of eraser. So that kind of explains the supply list. I think the other thing is a couple people had questions about what paper we're using at first, and you can start with the newsprint for a lot of the initial exercises because it's sort of practice type of paper. And then when we get to longer exercises where you're spending more time and doing more shading, you're going to want the white paper. So we're going to talk a bit about continuous contour drawing, or I should say I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of it, not talk about it. This camera isn't totally focusing perfectly well every time, so forgive me for that. It's pulling focus back and forth. Part of the problem with this whole thing is that I don't have a cinematographer, as I've said before, but we're working with it the best that we can. So I have a smaller piece of paper than the one that you'll have because I need to be able to show it fully in the camera. So it has to be a bit smaller, but you're going to want to work on 18 by 24. I have myself set up at my computer desk with a board, and I talked to you guys in the slideshow about setting up in such a way that you're comfortable. I'm pretty comfortable the way I have it set up, apart from the fact that the tripod's in the way. So I'm going to get a couple books and just show you what I mean about how books would help you possibly. So I have a couple books here. Let's just show you that you can get it set up at an angle that you can work on with some books. Again, going out of focus. And then you can draw like that with a little bit more ease, and your neck doesn't get all jacked up, and you can look at what you're drawing at more easily. Up and down, just turning your eyes up and down, instead of your whole head up and down, up and down. Okay? So I have this piece of paper, and I'm going to just do part of a quick drawing because I don't have enough space on this page, or I don't think it's very interesting for you to spend forever watching me do a drawing. But I want to show you how slowly I'm going to draw. And I'm going to draw an object that I'm looking at right in front of me. and just kind of show you how I would go about continuous contour. So I'd start wherever I want on it. I'm going to try to work in the middle of the page here. The object is actually taller than it is wide, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and make a switch for my paper being portrait, not landscape. And that's something important you're going to want to think about whenever you're doing your pieces is how wide or high is it, and which direction should you have the paper? Should you do it portrait or landscape? Okay. So immediately whenever you're doing a piece, just think right away about the format, which direction your paper is going to go. Okay? So this is taller than it is wide, so I'm going to do that. Now I'm just going to start on the top and show you how I'm going to slowly trace with my eye along the edge, and I'm going to keep looking at the object mostly, not my pencil or my hand, but actually look at the object as much as possible. And I'm not going to lift my pencil or pen if I was drawing in pen. I say pen because sometimes I make people do this in pen so you can't erase, but pencil. And every time I get to an edge where I'm not sure which direction to go, I'm just going to pause and not lift my pencil, okay? So I'm going to go this way, and I'm keeping on just my eye mostly looking at the object. I'm just slowly going along the whole edge of it. I'm not saying, oh, this is straight, I'm going to rush and go all the way straight. I'm actually just tracing it with my eye, looking down very occasionally. I just look down finally, but mostly I'm not. And just keep on going. Oh, it's going off course a little. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to lift my pencil up. I'm just going to go back a little and just keep on going. Yep, I got the angle's a little off, but I'm tempted right now to lift my pencil up and erase it and just get annoyed, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to go this way to do the other side of this. And I'm going really slow. I'm realizing my thickness is a little off. I'm not going to meet that line very well. But it doesn't matter because that's not the point of the drawing. I'm going to define this edge over here. The point of the drawing is to really get your eyes focused on the paper. Sorry, not the paper. I'm trying to draw and talk. To have your eyes not focused on the paper so that you can really, really just focus on the object and break that way of drawing that has to do with your symbol system. You know, we talked about the left and right hemisphere of the brain and how your brain has a little shorthand picture for everything. What I mean by shorthand is when you see a cat, you see like two triangle ears on a round face and a nose or something. That's a quick version of it. You don't actually see a super hyper realistic cat in your mind. It's like an impression. Okay? And so because of that, your left and right brain, part of your brain is really good at words and impressions, and it thinks it knows how everything looks. And the other part of your brain is really good at observing faces and recognizing patterns and visual logic. And so you really have to try to turn off the part of your brain when you're drawing that says, I know how things look, it should look this way. This is the way it looks. You're not doing it right. Why are you doing it that way? That's wrong. And you have to just start to engage the other part of your brain that's saying, that's not speaking. So it's kind of hard for me to do this and speak at the same time because I'm trying to use two sides of my brain at once and talk to you about the part of talk to you about it and use the part of my brain that's doing pictures. So that's the challenge here for me and why it's getting a little funky. So if you notice, I'm just going really slow. I'm tracing the edge of everything with my eye. This knob's giving me a bit of difficulty because I got the trajectory wrong in a few spots I'm not happy with. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to lift it up and erase. I'm just going to keep on going. And I'm far back on the object right now. There's like a part of a little mini tripod I use on the desk there. And that's the top part where the knob is to hold the camera. It's flipped sideways. So I'm going to start whenever things overlap, like right now something overlaps, I'm just going to decide which one I want to go to, and this is closer to me, so I decided I'll just go for that one, just go that direction. So I just have to pick each time, okay, where am I going to go? I can come back and add more detail in some spots if I want to. And this is a machine-made object, so in certain ways it's a little bit more, we'll say, uniform. So some of the flat or straight lines are a little more flat and straight. But you'll find that if you really look at these things, or the more you look at them, which drawing requires you to, that they aren't perfectly flat and straight. And we want all those details in there, because details are what make drawings feel really real. Okay? Those little variations, because we know intuitively, we have our symbol system on one hand, like our brain that picks up symbols and just understands things in shorthand. But then the other part of our brain knows, even intuitively, we don't always think about it, the difference between something that is real and fake. We can tell. It's called like the uncanny valley in when things are supposed to be like real humanness, but they're not, for like robots and things. And people are into making artificial intelligences kind of deal with this idea of not having something too uncanny, because we can tell it's not human or real because it has too, it's like when you go down to downtown Disney or Disneyland. There's something that looks like it should be kind of like the a small hamlet from a German town way back in the day or something. But it doesn't quite feel right because it doesn't have enough like grittiness and dirt to it. And they try their best, but it has that sort of amusement park quality that happens no matter what they do. And Disney's better than almost anyone else. If you go like to, I don't know, Universal Studios, it happens even more where you kind of feel like, oh, this isn't quite right. There's something about it that like you can kind of say to yourself, I can't tell what it is, but it's not as it should be. Well, same with drawings. If you have like a lot of extra detail, those little things, it feels more and more realistic, because that's the difference between kind of the idea of something and then actually what something actually is. Okay? That's what I'm trying to talk to you about. And say, we're trying to go for that level of detail. And if you're doing this correctly, it's going to take you a while to do 4 of these. For the first couple exercises, the 5 blind contours and this, you are doing individual objects, and that's fine. That's good. That's a good way to start. After a little bit, though, we're going to actually start doing still life setups. And so when you watched that video of me explaining things like the lecture, you hopefully saw that I want you to watch a video called Still Life Setups, and it's so that you can well, no, it's not called that. It's called, I'm getting my screen back up so I can see if I'm recording properly. It's not called Still Life Setups. It's called How to Set Up an Awesome Still Life. And you want to watch that video from the Met. The Met's an important museum in America. It's based in New York. If you notice, I still have not lifted my pencil. I'm doing a good job with that, because it's really challenging to not, even then when I was fixing that, I really wanted to just say, oh, forget it, I'll lift my pencil, but I haven't done it yet, so I'm feeling proud of myself. It's an important museum, and they're doing a cool thing because of the like stay-at-home type of stuff called sketching at the Met or sketching with the Met, and that's a kind of I feel like it's a cool service that they're doing that. Anyway, it's a cool video because she talks about a piece of artwork that's in the collection, pretty famous, by Cézanne, post-impressionist. But then she talks about setting up a still life in her own house, kind of based on it, like using it as inspiration and kind of how she would go about it. Well, one thing she does at the beginning, and you're going to want to do this when you set up your still lifes, is that to take a picture of it in case it gets bumped or messed up in some way, you can return it back to where it was, sort of closely. So I want to point that out. And then I definitely want you to watch the video, the whole video, because it talks about the history of it, which is super interesting, as well as kind of showing you some examples. It's also kind of cool to see how she sketches things out versus me, the teacher. And you want to look at different people's ways of doing things because, everybody has their own idiosyncratic bits to what they do. There's a lot of commonality among art teachers. People are trained, in similar ways, and the reason why is because there's a lot of good, particularly good ways to do certain things, and one of them is observational drawing, which this class is really about observational drawing, learning to draw by observing, has been done in a lot of ways very similarly for a really long time because it works really well, which is like real-time drawing and feedback. Well, I don't get to give you instantaneous feedback, so that's part of the difficulty of this learning modality of online. But what I can do is give you digital feedback on everything, and it'll work well if you send me that picture of the still life with your drawing, and we can look at them. I can look at them at the same time. And we can look at them together if you needed help on Zoom or something. We could do that as well and talk through the details. But the point is that if you take that picture, then you can return the still life back to how it was, and you can also send it to me so I can see what you're doing and give you feedback on what's not working so well in your drawing. Okay, so see how slowly I'm going here? I want to give you a little quick view. I'm not going to lift my pencil, but you see how I'm going really slowly? I'm just not even trying to be perfect in every way, but I'm looking at the object the whole time, keeping my eyes on it and really trying to make sure I don't lift my pencil and I let this thing develop just by looking and tracing and looking. The purpose of this whole thing right here, this whole exercise, this whole week of modules, is to get you out of this idea that you know how to draw things or that you know what things look like. Because you kind of do and you kind of don't. Until you really look and look and look and look and focus on looking, and then you're not going to be able to draw accurately. So you got to really focus on the looking. And you're trying to connect your brain up here, I'm touching my head, to your hand and your eye. So your eye to your brain to your hand. And you got to do that. There's only one way to do that is by practice and by really, really looking. And then the pathway starts to develop more and more and more as you go. But you really got to stop thinking to yourself, oh, I know how this is. I'll just do it really quickly. And slow down, slow down, slow down, and trace it with your eye at first with contour drawing, okay? If I was with you in person, I'd be walking around and looking at you and you'd be drawing super fast, one point to the next, just going shh, shh, shh. But I would be like, nope, slow your hand, slow your eye, really, really, really just trace the edge of that object. And I'm talking about even you can go this slow. It's okay, it feels a little awkward, but you'll get used to it as you go, and you'll feel like you've really accomplished a new skill set once you can just slow down, and you'll start seeing that your drawings are changing. Not necessarily at first getting better, but they will get better if you go through the method. At first you might think they're worse, and you might want to be tempted to go back to your old way of sketching, but until you do things in new ways and try new ways and learn new things by pushing past the uncomfortability, you'll just keep drawing the way you've always drawn. And if you keep drawing the way you've always drawn, you'll get the same results, and that's fine. But if that's all you want to do, then you can just keep doing that. But then there wouldn't be really much of a point in taking a college class about it, right? So to really break out of that and get some new skills and new tools and new abilities with this, you got to try new things. And as my son's Daniel Tiger says, you got to try new foods that might taste good. Well, you got to try new types of drawing that might be fun. You never know. At first, it'll be a little painful, but you have something uncomfortable. but after a little while you'll start to get to where you feel more and more comfortable with it, and then you'll actually feel like you've been learning something. So we're at 20 minutes. I think that's long enough for this to feel not overwhelming, totally overwhelming. You're going to need to draw the entire object. This is what I was drawing right here. So you can see how it's not dead on exact. Hard for me to draw and talk, but it's doing pretty good. See how big I was drawing? I want to point that out as well. I was drawing pretty large, larger than life, because I want you to use a lot of the page. I don't want you just to do tiny little drawings over here in the corner, okay? Just don't do tiny little drawings. Use the whole page. Alright guys, I hope you're staying well out there and taking care of yourselves. I'll see you next time with the next thing we're going to be doing together. Take care. If you have questions, feel free to comment and post in the question and answer cafe. We can all help each other out there. Other students can say what they think, and then I'll moderate it. So that's a good place to get feedback. And I look forward to seeing what you guys got going on with your drawings.